I am Clara. I'm 35 years old, and I used to work as an archivist in Seattle. I truly believed I had a normal, functioning marriage until the morning I woke up in a sterile hospital room and realized my husband's desperate cover-up was about to crumble. What the attending physician said next became my lifeline. I still tremble recalling the story because even 2 years have passed, and the terror, the agonizing pain he inflicted, and the constant fear I endured daily, it all continues to haunt my nightmares. But I have to speak. I need this narrative to reach you. Maybe, just maybe, my story will help someone else break free from the hell I was trapped in. Before I reveal how those words from the doctor changed everything, please take a moment to hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Your support is everything to me. It reminds me I'm not isolated anymore, that there are people out there who listen, who care, and who believe survivors like me. So please, take a second to do that. Thank you. Now, let me take you back to the very beginning, because you need to understand the trajectory of how I landed here. You need to know that I wasn't always this broken, terrified woman with bruises covering her body. There was a time when I genuinely laughed, when I smiled, when I actually believed in the concept of true love. God, I was so utterly naive, so clueless, so blind. I first met Victor 7 years ago at a local literary gathering. He was captivating, absolutely captivating. His smile had the ability to illuminate an entire room. When he looked at me, I felt like the only woman on the entire planet. He brought me coffee on our second date. He retained every minor detail I had ever shared about myself. He would text me "good morning" every single day and constantly remind me how beautiful I was, how lucky he felt to have found me. Everyone around us declared that I had found the perfect man. My friends were openly envious. My sister adored him. My father shook his hand firmly and warned, "You take good care of my daughter, son." And he promised he would. He looked my father directly in the eye and swore he would. We were married 2 years after we met. The ceremony was beautiful. Everything I had ever dreamed of. I wore an ivory gown. He wore a sharp charcoal suit. When we exchanged our vows, I genuinely believed every single word. For better or worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. Those words, oh God, those words would come back to torment me, because the worst part arrived far sooner than I could have ever imagined. The change began just 8 months after the wedding. 8 months. That's all the time it took for the facade to crack, for the true monster to surface from behind that charming exterior. We were having dinner, a routine Wednesday evening. I had prepared lasagna, which was his absolute favorite, but apparently I hadn't cooked it long enough. He took a single bite, and his entire demeanor shifted. It was like observing a physical switch flipping. One moment, he was my husband. Then next, he was a stranger, whose eyes were frigid, dark, and overflowing with hostility. "You can't even manage a basic meal, can you?" he hissed, his voice dropping low and laced with threat. "What kind of spouse are you?" I let out a nervous chuckle, assuming he was joking. "Sweetheart, it's just slightly underdone. I can put it back in the oven." That's when it happened. That's when his hand struck my face for the very first time. The sound of the slap echoed through our dining area. I stood frozen, in shock, my hand pressed against my cheek where the sting was immediate, unable to comprehend the reality of what just occurred. My husband had hit me. "Don't you dare laugh at me," he whispered venomously. "Don't ever show me that kind of disrespect again." I should have walked out immediately. I should have fled that door and never looked back. But I didn't. And do you know why? Because 30 seconds later, he was weeping. Genuine tears poured down his face. He sank to his knees, grabbing my hands, begging for forgiveness repeatedly. I am so deeply sorry, baby. I lost control. Work has been so overwhelmingly stressful. I just snapped. I would never intentionally hurt you. You know I love you. Please forgive me. Please. It will never, ever happen again. I swear it won't. And I believed him. Lord help me, I fell for it. I convinced myself it was an isolated incident, that everyone makes errors, that he was simply under too much pressure at work. I constructed excuses for his actions. I blamed myself. Maybe I shouldn't have laughed. Maybe I should have been more careful with dinner. Perhaps I had somehow provoked him without realizing it. The next morning, he arrived home with 3 dozen exquisite lilies and an emerald pendant necklace. He treated me to my favorite little cafe. He held my hand across the table and assured me I was the most vital person in his entire life. And I smiled. I actually smiled and thanked him for the gifts, the meal, and for loving me. I carefully concealed the dark bruise on my cheek with heavy makeup and pretended everything was back to normal. But it wasn't. It would never be normal again.
The second incident occurred exactly 4 weeks later. I had forgotten to collect his dry cleaning. He had asked me that morning, but I got swamped with my archival work and completely let it slip my mind. Such a minor, insignificant oversight. But when he came home and realized what I had failed to do, he grabbed me by the hair and forcibly slammed my head against the wall. I gasped, all the air rushing out of my lungs, feeling a violent explosion of pain across my back and shoulders. He held me suspended there, his face inches from mine, his hand twisting tightly in my hair. You have one primary duty as my wife, one duty, to cater to me, to follow my instructions, and you can't even manage that. Then he shoved me to the ground and simply walked away as if nothing extraordinary had taken place. I lay there on the floor, weeping, confused and utterly terrified. This wasn't the man I had married. But it was. He was both men. The charming, attentive spouse in public, and the ruthless monster lurking behind closed doors. Following that, it became a routine, a toxic, destructive cycle that completely ensnared me. He would hurt me, then he would immediately apologize. He would shower me with gifts, act sweet and devoted for a few days or perhaps a week, and then some trivial detail would trigger him again and the violence would return. Each episode was more brutal than the last. Each time, I swore to myself it would be the final time. Each time, I was mistaken. He began systematically isolating me from my friends. Initially, it was subtle. Do you really need to go out with those girls tonight? I thought we could have a quiet evening together. Then it became outright controlling. Why are you constantly on the phone with your friends? Am I not enough for you? Eventually, he would fly into a terrible rage whenever I made plans with anyone. You're choosing them over me, your own husband? So I ceased making plans. I stopped calling my friends. I stopped going out altogether. It was simply easier than confronting his anger. My family was next. He would deliberately provoke arguments right before family gatherings, ensuring I was too distressed or too bruised to attend. Tell them you're ill, he'd command. Tell them you have a nasty flu or something. So I obeyed. I manufactured excuses. I canceled plans. My sister started calling less and less frequently, hurt that I kept backing out of family dinners. I could sense the disappointment and confusion in her tone. But what could I possibly tell her? That my husband was beating me? That I was trapped? That I was petrified? I couldn't. I was too consumed by shame and embarrassment. How do you admit to your family that you've become that woman? The one you always promised yourself you would never be? the one who stays with a man who harms her. I always believed I was stronger than that. I thought if I were ever in that situation, I'd escape immediately. But when you are living through it, when you are in the eye of the storm, everything is fundamentally different. Everything becomes complicated, confusing, and profoundly terrifying. The beatings became much more frequent. What began as once every few weeks escalated to once a week, then several times a week, and eventually it was a daily occurrence. Every single day he found some reason to inflict pain. The house wasn't clean enough. Dinner was delayed. I had looked at him the wrong way. I had spoken a word that displeased him. I had breathed too loudly. It made no difference what I did or failed to do. Nothing was ever right. Nothing was ever satisfactory. He would punch me in the torso where the injuries were less likely to be visible. He would pull my hair until I genuinely feared he would tear it from my scalp. He would twist my arms behind my back until I heard a faint pop. He would kick me when I was already lying defenseless on the ground. And the entire time he would assert that it was my fault, that I deserved it, that if I would only comply with him, if I would simply do what I was expected to do, he wouldn't be forced to discipline me. Discipline. That's the term he used for it. As if I were a child who required a lesson. As if his brutality was somehow justified, somehow my responsibility. I began wearing long sleeves even during the Seattle summer. Turtlenecks to conceal the unmistakable handprints around my throat. Oversized sunglasses to hide the black eyes. Makeup. Layers upon layers of foundation and concealer were applied thickly to hide the tapestry of bruises, purple, blue, yellow, and green, that covered my skin. I looked into the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. I had shed a significant amount of weight because I was too anxious to eat. My eyes held a hollow, haunted expression. I looked like a phantom. I felt like one, too. I tried to escape once. Just one time. It was after a particularly vicious night where the beating was so severe I couldn't walk without assistance for 3 days. I packed a small duffel bag while he was away at work, gathered the meager savings I had hidden, and drove to a cheap motel across town. A wave of hope, a sudden feeling of liberty washed over me. I had done it. I had finally gotten away. But he found me. I still don't know how, but he located me within 8 hours. He showed up at that motel room door, and when I opened it, mistakenly thinking it was housekeeping, there he was. The expression on his face, I will never forget it. Pure, terrifying rage mixed with this possessive insanity. He forcibly dragged me back to the apartment by my arm, his fingers digging into my skin so hard they left deep impressions. Once we were inside, he locked the door and beat me worse than he had ever had before. He struck me repeatedly with closed fists, yelling that I belonged to him, that I was his wife, that I had no inherent right to leave, and that if I ever tried to run again, he would execute me. And I believed him. I wholeheartedly believed him. "You are nothing without me," he screamed into my face. "No one else would ever want you. Look at you. You're pathetic, feeble, worthless. Your family doesn't even call you anymore. Your friends have forgotten you. I am your only connection. Do you understand me? I am all you have." And in that moment, I believed that as well. I truly believed I was trapped forever, that this was my predetermined life now, that I had made my commitment when I married him, and now I had to accept the consequences. I stopped planning to leave. I stopped hoping for anything better. I simply existed, day by day, hour by hour, meticulously trying not to perform any action that might ignite his fury, constantly walking on eggshells in my own residence. He would threaten me constantly. "If you breathe a word to anyone, I'll tell them you're mentally unstable. Nobody will ever believe you. You have zero proof. It's your testimony against mine, and I am a highly respected pillar of this community. You're just a hysterical woman who can't handle her marriage."
And he was correct. I had no tangible proof. He was meticulous. He injured me in places that were easily hidden or covered. He was intelligent about the abuse, calculated. He knew exactly what he was doing. The financial control also intensified. He seized control of all our bank accounts. I had no independent access to money. He allocated me a small weekly allowance strictly for groceries, and I was mandated to show him receipts for every item purchased. If I was even slightly over budget, he would accuse me of stealing from him, and the resulting punishment was severe. I couldn't maintain my job anymore. He had compelled me to resign from my archivist position months ago, asserting that his income was sufficient and that my designated place was at home. Without my own salary, without any savings, without any financial freedom, I was entirely dependent on him, completely under his domination. This nightmare continued for 4 years. 4 years of daily abuse, 4 years of existing in terror, 4 years of going to bed unsure if I would wake up the next morning, 4 years of silently wishing I wouldn't. There were nights I contemplated ending it myself. The pain, the fear, the utter hopelessness. It was too much to bear. I would stand in the bathroom, staring at a bottle of prescription pills, thinking how easeful it would be to just swallow them all and drift away into nothingness. No more suffering, no more terror, no more him. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. Some small fragment of myself, some tiny spark that he hadn't managed to extinguish completely, held on. It clung to the memory of the person I once was, the person I could potentially be again if I could just survive long enough to escape. Then came the day that changed everything. The day referenced in the title you clicked on. The day I lost consciousness. The day his deeply woven lie began to unravel. It was a Friday. I remember vividly because Fridays were reliably bad. He always returned from work in an exceptionally foul mood every Friday, something about the end-of-week pressure overwhelming him. And when he was stressed, I was the one who suffered the cost. I had prepared dinner precisely how he preferred it. Salmon, thoroughly cooked, roasted potatoes, asparagus. I had his favorite Pinot Noir waiting. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could avert his anger that night if everything was singularly perfect. But nothing was ever sufficient.
He took one bite of the salmon and immediately spit it out. "This is repulsive. What did you do to it?" I cooked it exactly the way you always request," I stammered, my heart already pounding with fear. "Well done, just like always." "It's dry," he stated, his voice turning cold. "You are completely incapable of doing anything right, are you?" He stood up, and I knew what was imminent. I tried to back away, but there was nowhere to retreat. He seized me by the throat and slammed my back against the refrigerator. My head struck the cold metal with a sickening thud, and my vision exploded with light. "I work tirelessly all day to provide for you," he growled, his face inches from mine, his hand squeezing my windpipe tighter. "And this is the thanks I receive? A ruined dinner?" He hurled me to the floor and began kicking me. My ribs, my back, my legs. I curled into the fetal position, desperate to shield my vital organs, sobbing and pleading with him to stop, but he didn't stop. He had moved beyond rage, beyond all semblance of sanity. He kicked me again and again, and I felt a distinct crack in my rib cage. The pain was blindingly intense. Then he hauled me up by my hair and started punching me in the face. I felt my lip tear, felt blood gushing down my face, filling my mouth with a metallic taste. One punch struck my temple, and the world began to spin wildly. My sight blurred. I heard him yelling at me, but his voice sounded distant, submerged, as if I were underwater. "You worthless trash heap! You destroy everything. I should have left you where I found you."
Another punch, another shattering explosion of pain, and then silence. Everything went black. I did not feel myself impact the floor. I felt nothing at all. I simply vanished into the void. I am unsure how long I was unconscious. It could have been mere minutes or extended hours, but when I began to stir, I was no longer on the kitchen floor. I was being moved, jostling roughly. I attempted to open my eyes, but one was badly swollen shut. Through my single working eye, I could barely discern that I was in a car, his car, and he was driving, frantically whispering to himself in a panic. "Wake up. Damn it, wake up. Don't you dare die on me. Not now. Not like this." I tried to speak, but my mouth refused to cooperate. Everything ached. Every single breath sent searing pain through my chest. I must have managed to make some sound, though, because he briefly checked the rearview mirror. I realized I was lying down in the back seat. "Stay conscious," he commanded. And for a fleeting moment, he actually sounded genuinely concerned, worried. But then I heard his next words, and I realized this had never been about me. It was about him covering his tracks. Okay, I have the story. She fell down the stairs. That's the entire story. She tripped down the stairs and hit her head. I arrived home from work and discovered her. I am the terrified, concerned husband rushing his wife to the emergency room. That's the narrative. She fell down the stairs. He repeated this phrase constantly, rehearsing his fabrication, perfecting the details. I lay there in the back seat, drifting in and out of awareness, listening to him meticulously construct the narrative that would explain away the extensive trauma covering my body. The stairs. Of course, it's always the stairs or walking into glass doors or general clumsiness. The oldest, most despicable excuse in the abuser's manual. Through the fog of pain and confusion, a tiny emotion sparked within me. Hope. He was taking me to a hospital. I would be surrounded by other people, doctors, nurses, people who might dare to ask difficult questions, people who might see through his pathetic lie. This might be my chance, perhaps my only opportunity. But that surge of hope was instantly smothered by fear. What if they dismissed my claims? What if they believed his story instead? He was right there beside me. He would control my every utterance, every interaction. And even if I managed to reveal the truth, what then? He had sworn he would murder me if I ever attempted to leave. What retribution would he seek if I exposed him? If I landed him in trouble? I must have passed out again, because the next sensation was bright, harsh lights, loud voices, and people moving swiftly around me. The emergency room. I was on a gurney, being rapidly wheeled down a corridor. I tried desperately to focus, to grasp what was happening, but everything was agonizing and disorienting. I heard his voice, loud and perfectly playing the role of the distraught husband.
Please help her. I came home from work and found her at the base of the staircase. She must have fallen. There was blood everywhere. Please, you must save my wife. Such a convincing performance, such authentically sounding panic and grief. If I didn't possess the knowledge, if I hadn't just endured the reality of what truly happened, I would have believed him myself. They transferred me to a bed in the ER. A nurse began checking my vital signs while a doctor initiated an examination. He was hovering immediately nearby, performing his role flawlessly, holding my hand, gently stroking my hair, so gently, nothing like the way he had wrenched it earlier, assuring me everything would be fine, reiterating to the medical staff how consumed with worry he was about me. The doctor began asking initial questions. "Ma'am, can you tell us exactly what transpired?" I opened my mouth, glanced at my husband, standing right there, and felt the crucial words wither and die in my throat.
His eyes were locked firmly onto mine, and even though his facial expression appeared concerned and loving, I could clearly see the silent threat in his gaze. "Don't you dare. Don't you say a single word." Before I could formulate a response, he interjected. "She fell down the stairs. I was away when it happened, but when I arrived home, she was unconscious at the bottom. We have plush carpeting, and she must have simply slipped. It was a terrible accident." The doctor nodded slowly, making notes, but the nurse, a woman in her late 50s with deeply kind eyes, Nurse Vivian, kept looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. Concern? Suspicion? I couldn't tell. "Ma'am, please, can you tell us in your own words what occurred?" the nurse asked softly. I looked at her, then at him, then back at her. I wanted to scream the truth. I wanted to tell them everything, but the fear was still overwhelmingly strong. He was right there, listening to every syllable. If I spoke the truth, what would he do to me once we were home alone? I don't remember," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I remember being at the top of the stairs, and then nothing." He squeezed my hand, and to any observer, it would have seemed like a comforting gesture of support. But I felt the intensity of his grip, the hard pressure of his fingers. Another explicit warning. "It's all right, honey. You are safe now. They are going to take excellent care of you."
The doctor ordered x-rays and a CT scan. "We must check for fractures and any internal bleeding. Can you specify if you are experiencing pain anywhere in particular?" "Everywhere," I managed to articulate. "Everything hurts." They had to cut off my sweater to properly examine me, and that is precisely when I saw the nurse's expression harden. She had uncovered my torso, and even I could see what she was staring at. Bruises everywhere. My entire trunk was painted in different colors, fresh purple ones from tonight, yellowing marks from the previous week, greenish ones from weeks before that, a chronological roadmap of chronic abuse painted across my skin. The doctor's professional demeanor changed immediately, too. He looked at the bruises, then at my husband, then at the nurse. Something crucial passed between them, unspoken. "These contusions," the doctor stated carefully, "they appear to be in various stages of healing. Some of them are quite old." My husband didn't falter. "She has always been incredibly clumsy. She bruises very easily, too. She is constantly walking into furniture, tripping over rugs. I constantly advise her to be more cautious, but you know how these things are." He laughed. He actually laughed, as if my profound injuries were just some funny, adorable quirk of my personality, as if I were some silly accident-prone woman incapable of safely navigating her own home. But the doctor was not laughing. Neither was the nurse. They exchanged another knowing glance, and then Nurse Vivian spoke. "We are going to take you for those scans now, sir. You will need to wait here." "I want to accompany her," he protested. "She is my wife. She needs me with her." "Hospital policy," the nurse said firmly. "You can wait in the family waiting room. We will retrieve you when she is returned." I saw frustration flash across his face, but he dared not argue too vehemently without raising further suspicion. Okay, I will wait, baby. I'll be right here when you get back. I'm not going anywhere." That's precisely what I was terrified of. They wheeled me away down another lengthy corridor to the radiology department. The nurse remained with me the entire time, and once we were away from the ER bay, safely away from him, she leaned down close. "Honey," she said quietly, "those injuries did not happen from a fall down the stairs. I have been an ER nurse for 32 years. I know exactly what domestic violence looks like." Tears began to stream down my face. I couldn't contain them any longer.
"It is okay," she continued. "You are safe right now. He cannot reach you here. But I need you to tell me the honest truth. Did he do this to you?"
I wanted to scream yes. I wanted to tell her absolutely everything, but the paralyzing fear was still dominant. I I can't. He will kill me. You don't understand. If I say anything, he will kill me. We will not allow that to happen, she promised. We have security. We have established resources. We can assist you, but you must confirm the truth. The X-ray technician entered then, and the critical conversation was forced to a halt. They took images of my head, my chest, my shattered ribs. Then they took me for a CT scan. The entire time, my mind was racing frantically. Should I tell them? Could I tell them? What catastrophic repercussions would follow if I did? What definite disaster would happen if I did not? When they brought me back to the ER, I was placed in a different area than before, a private room rather than the open observation bay. My husband was, of course, there, standing dutifully by the bedside, that fraudulent, concerned look cemented on his face. "How is she?" he demanded. "What did the tests indicate?" "The physician will be in shortly to review the results," the nurse said coolly. The minutes that followed felt like an agonizing eternity. He gripped my hand, caressed my hair, playing his designated role flawlessly. But every few seconds, when he was certain nobody was observing, he would lean in close and whisper lethal warnings into my ear. "Remember what I told you. The stairs, that's all. You say anything different and you know exactly what the consequence will be. I'll make what I did tonight feel like nothing compared to what I will do to you. Do you comprehend me?" I nodded infinitesimally, too terrified to do anything else. Then the doctor returned, carrying a tablet displaying my test results, and this is the exact moment everything irrevocably changed. This is where my life, my nightmare, took a dramatic turn I never could have foreseen. This is the moment from the thumbnail, the crucial moment that truly saved my life. The doctor looked at me, then at my husband, then back to me. His expression was solemn, completely professional, but I sensed something else there too, a quiet determination, perhaps even anger. "Ma'am, the results from your CT scan and X-rays reveal several critically concerning injuries. You have a severe concussion, a split lower lip, 4 fractured ribs, and clear evidence of previous fractures that healed improperly." He paused. In that silence, I could feel my husband stiffen beside me, his hand tightening painfully on mine. The doctor continued, his eyes never wavering from mine. "Ma'am, these specific injuries show an unmistakable pattern of repeated physical trauma over an extended period. The bruising on your body suggests multiple, separate incidents occurring over weeks, possibly months. The fractures are in various stages of healing. These injuries are medically inconsistent with a simple fall down the stairs." I watched my husband's face, and that's when it truly happened. He froze. He completely froze. All the color drained from his face entirely. His mouth fell slightly open, but no sound escaped. For the first time since I had met him, he had absolutely no counter-response. No prepared lie, no charm to deploy. He just stood there, paralyzed as his meticulously constructed facade dissolved around him. The doctor wasn't finished. "These are clear indicators of ongoing domestic violence. The injury patterns are unmistakable to medical professionals trained in trauma assessment. I have already contacted hospital security and social services. I need to speak with you alone, without your husband present." "Now, wait just a damned minute," my husband exploded, his voice rising, that charming mask finally peeling away to reveal the monster beneath. But the doctor cut him off instantly. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to vacate this room immediately. This is not a request or a negotiation. Security." "She's my wife. You cannot keep me from my wife." "Actually, I can. And I am. Security." 2 security guards materialized in the doorway, looking as if they had been positioned just outside. They almost certainly had been.
My husband glared at me, and the raw rage in his eyes was utterly terrifying. But he couldn't act on it. Not here, not in front of multiple witnesses. He was exposed, trapped, and he knew it. "This is completely ludicrous," he sputtered, desperately trying to reassert control of the situation. "She simply fell down the stairs. Tell them, Clara. Tell them what actually happened. Tell them you were just clumsy, that you bruise easily, that—" "Sir, you need to leave now," one of the security guards stated firmly, stepping forward. "I am not leaving this hospital without my wife."
Sir, if you do not leave voluntarily, we will escort you out and contact the Seattle Police Department. That is your only choice." He stared at me for one long, terrifying moment, and I could see him frantically calculating his next move. Then he seemed to concede. He would depart, but he would ensure I knew this was far from over. "Fine," he ground out through clenched teeth. "I'll go, but Clara, remember who you belong to. Remember what I told you. I will be waiting right outside for you. I will be waiting." The security guards immediately escorted him out, and for the first time in 4 years, I was in a room without him. I could truly breathe. I could think coherently. I could speak without the immediate fear of violent retaliation. The instant the door closed, I completely broke down. All the tears I had been withholding, all the fear, all the physical pain, it poured out of me in great, heaving sobs. My entire body shook with the force of it, and even though my fractured ribs screamed in protest, I could not stop crying. The nurse was instantly there, holding my hand, assuring me it was safe, that I was finally secure. The doctor pulled a chair next to my bed and waited patiently for me to calm down enough to speak. "I need you to tell me the truth, Clara," he said gently, once my sobs had quieted to trembling hiccups. "Did your husband do this to you?" And finally, I spoke the words I had been too terrified to utter for 4 years. "Yes." If my story touched you, helped you, or gave you even a tiny spark of hope, please let me know right now. Drop in the comments where you're listening from. Are you in New York, Texas, Canada, Philippines, Australia? I read every single one, and seeing your cities and countries lights up my heart and reminds me we're in this together. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the little bell so you never miss a new survivor story or the resources we share. It's completely free, takes 1 second, and it helps this message reach more people who are still trapped and scared. Your like, your comment, your share, it could be the sign someone needs today to finally reach out for help. So tell me right now, where are you listening from? Drop your city or country below. Earth, love. I'm waiting to see your name light up the comments. Thank you for being here with me.